Candace Owens has been very helpful for this show for quite a while. She says things that sometimes when we try to come up with a topic, we don't need to work very hard because she does our work for us. I mean, you all have seen the decline, even and the starting point wasn't very high, but she managed to decline from wherever she was to the point where she did that video where we actually thought like, should we stop talking about her because she looks like a complete lunatic talking about the Zionist was a cover up for pedophiles and JFK and whatever else. This is like downhill from I'm not a flat earther, I'm not a round earther, I have left the cult of science. So you have to really think like what would make somebody like that seem sane by comparison. Well, enter Cenk Uygur. Yeah, Pierce Morgan never ceases to discuss and provide also material for our shows. And he did a show a couple days ago with Cenk Uygur, Candace Owens. There was another guest whose name I forget, and there was another guest whose name I forget. One was a former Navy SEAL who's a commentator in the U.S. The other was a former IDF spokesperson who Daniel probably has the name of. And well, we're going to see a lot of it. Some of the things we're not going to see, like we're going to mostly talk about what they talked about in relation to Lebanon. This was, I think, right after the walkie-talkies exploding, so they had knowledge of the pagers already. And but when they were talking about Trump and they were talking, this Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL guy was speaking. He had ideas that are out there and kind of scary. But Candace at some point says, you should be respectful when you're talking to a Navy SEAL. And Shank says he's a mercenary, and then says to him, how many innocent civilians have you killed in Iraq? So yeah, I just want to set the tone for, in case you don't know Cenk Uygur, you don't really recall how despicable he is, because
Someone
sometimes when
said in the
somebody
quote, Cenk Ogre, which throwing that out there as well.
that is fitting. And if like sometimes when somebody, shouts too much, you can't really hear what they're actually saying. You just hear noise. So maybe you miss the content of Chenk's character. But yeah, we don't miss anything here on the reality show. Welcome to the reality show. We are gonna watch a little bit of this and talk a lot about it. I'm joined by Jonathan Honig and Daniel. Either of you have anything to say before we go right into the first clip?
I mean, just for quick transparency. So Eric Prince is the ex-Navy SEAL, but more importantly, he's the founder of Blackwater. He's former Navy SEAL from like 30 years ago. So I think the fact that, especially it makes sense with the Cenk Uyghur's point, since he said he's a mercenary. He is an actual. He founded a private military company. So just for that, and the former IDF spokesman is Jonathan Conricus. Um, yeah, it was an interesting interview.
Well, I'll say one thing about Candace Owens. I mean, Razi, she reminds me these days a lot of what David Letterman used to say about Madonna in Madonna's kind of later attempts to still stay relevant. In the 90s, Letterman used to joke, Madonna, she loves to shock us. And it was true because she was getting kind of more blatant and desperate in her attempts to stay relevant. And I see that very much, for certainly Candace and also Cenk. I mean, these are media creatures. That's why they're on Piers Morgan. They don't get the smartest scholars, or they get, media creatures. So everyone's waiting for not necessarily some interesting perspective, but for Cenk to blow up. Or, I mean, I don't know. So they have a desperate need to stay influential, which is why they say more outrageous things. The irony is that people always say, oh, Ayn Rand is so outrageous, yet there's philosophy, there's ideas behind every claim Ayn Rand ever made. So I took certainly one for the team in watching these two folks today, but interested to see our super chatters chime in as well.
All right, should we get to the first clip?
Candace, your reaction to this extraordinary operation, seemingly led by Mossad, ordered by Netanyahu yesterday, ongoing today, right across Lebanon. 2 children are reported to have been killed in this operation, who were clearly civilians and not Hezbollah terrorists. That's reported by the Lebanese Health Authority, which is not Hezbollah. What is your response to this? Is it, as Jonathan just said, fair game if primarily the people who were targeted, almost all of them appear to have been Hezbollah?
Well, I think a question that I immediately want to ask him, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to, is that if you're able to delineate how surgical and precise these operations can be with the intelligence that you have, why are there 40,000 dead innocent women and children and civilians in Gaza? Because that's a question that I've always had. We keep hearing the excuse that behind every one of these victims is a Hamas soldier, but there's not 40,000 dead Hamas soldiers. And if the excuse is that there's a tunnel under there, I mean, just me thinking logically through engineering, you would only have to hit a tunnel at a couple of points to render it ineffective. So I'm just interested in why you guys can perform surgical procedures, but seemingly not in Gaza, where it looks like just an absolute war zone and buildings and hospitals and children and women are dead.
Well,
all right. Okay. So yeah, we will hear the response, which was good, but the question again, it's Candace. Her delivery is composed compared to when she's sitting alone in front of a camera without anybody on the other side. It's with Cenk in the picture, and then you even hear him talk. That's a different level. But that is really stupid on every level, that question, because
Where
again,
did she get the 40,000 number?
Yeah. So and again, this is something Western advocates of Hamas do all the time, which is they exaggerate Hamas's exaggerations. Like Hamas invents the numbers and then they, make up shit. So 40,000 or 41,000 is the latest Hamas number, right? But Hamas themselves don't say this is all women and children. They, throw out some percentage of women and children, but they don't pretend it's, and of course, children are 18 and under, so many are combatants. Women can be combatants too. I know it's shocking to Western feminists and whatever the current right wing is. But yeah, so the number is a lie, and is a lie based on a lie brought to you by terrorists.
I'll just quickly say, even if the number, for me at least, this is me talking, obviously not objectivism, Rand, but even if the number was true, war is ugly, Candace, so don't start one. Candace abstracts out some piece of propaganda, kind of, talk about kind of sticking your head in the ground, like excludes out the whole context of why there even is a war. Like, what is going on here? For her, the story is Israel's, I don't know, being too aggressive. That for her is the story, not the whole context of why you've got thousands of young Israelis who are not at their high-tech jobs, pulling the economy forward, creating things, but having to go risk their lives, go root out these shitheads who keep lobbing missiles for years on end.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to things like this, I always, the always question is, okay, what should it be? I think that's the best question you can always ask, even when people complain about pretty much anything. If they complain about what the economy is doing or how it is doing under someone, or any sort of statistics, any sort of casualties, any sort of operation, any sort of how much something costs. The question is, okay, if you don't like this one, what should it be? And if you ask this, what do you get? And I'm gonna quote Atlas Shrugged again: blank out. You don't get any answer, because there is none. There is nothing they would give you. When did we start hearing that the number is too far? When it was maybe I think when it was like 10,000 or like 15,000, it was already too high. So again, like it's so that sort of,
and the hostage number was never too high. That was never an issue. The fact there was how many hundreds of people just swiped, that was never discussed at all. Israel's retaliation, that's the moral crime here.
yeah, but it's used for comparison. I mean, we might hear it from Cenk. He'll say, Israel has killed, I think he says like 30 times more innocent people than Hamas did. And again, that sort of like number comparison, again, it's almost like a Stalin like sort of like response, sort of just comparing numbers and sort of finding what is good, what is right, just based on numbers is again like so evil and disgusting, like complete, complete refusal of actually looking at, okay, what is the good, what is the right thing to do? What is the proper thing to do? Again, it's simply a red herring, when you focus on these numbers, because again, they don't care about the numbers either. Even when you push them on the numbers, at the end of the day, it's just Israel just shouldn't do this. Israel just shouldn't do this. Because even when you prove the numbers false, even if you push against the numbers, they'll start pushing, well, what is Israel doing in the West Bank? What about the settlers? They'll just jump into a different point without ever like conceding.
Well, we've seen Candace. Should we see Cenk Uygur?
Well, I think we want to see some of this exchange between Candace and the IDF spokesperson, but a point that I'm not sure we're going to get to in this. By the way, this is an hour and 20 minutes. We're going to get through a few minutes of it. I recommend, I use that word very carefully, to people who don't really understand what Candace and Cenk are to watch it if you can stomach it. I don't recommend it as like an enjoyable experience. I've just watch Seinfeld if you want to have fun. But yeah, so Candace at some point does actually say that it's legitimate when Pierce asks her, it was legitimate for Israel to blow up the pagers. And again, this is a woman who I was surprised that she's even sitting with devices around her, not worried that they're all going to explode because the Jews don't like her. So this is, if you hear the kind of stuff that she says, and you should hear the kind of stuff that she said and that we've talked about in the past few months. Keep that in mind when you hear Cenk and think what kind of a person Cenk has to be for her to be not the worst person on that panel. Let's hear. Yeah.
I just quickly want to add one more thing, which again, I think it shows how I think Cenk knows what is the right thing here. Cenk knows what is the good thing here, and he is either like very ignorant on when he talks about different issues, or is actually evil. Because so earlier in the video, we won't go there, but they talk about the Trump assassination, and I felt bad because I think Cenk was making really good points, and I wish he could actually apply the same points to Israel, because he was basically criticizing, there was the assassination attempt on Trump. I think this interview took like a day or 2 days after, and Cenk was saying, okay, like what am I supposed to do? Yes, he shouldn't get assassinated. I've been saying it always, but I will be saying he is a dictator wannabe. I will be still saying this, even though I disagree with this, and I wish he would. And he was telling to Piers Morgan, like, what do you want me to do? Like, am I supposed to just lie? And I wish he applied the same sort of rhetoric to Israel, and he would understand it. Like, okay, what is Israel supposed to do? Is it supposed to just lay down and die? Is that what you want? Because again, I think very similar philosophy or very similar reasoning applies. And the fact that he cannot connect these two things, I think shows that he's either very ignorant or very evil.
I think, well, let's roll the tape. Roll the tape.
Yeah, I have to disagree with you there, Daniel. I think some of what Cenk said in the part about the Trump assassination was borderline, not justifying it, but look, Trump is really bad, therefore, this could. I mean, it was borderline, and even there, Candace, again, seemed like the less insane party.
And what I'm just going to quickly tell you is that they both play to an audience of one, which is Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan has a platform. He could have anyone he wants on. If it's not Cenk, it's going to be that woman from Code Pink who's a crazy. She's got a lot of other options. So they have to fight. So they're going to take whatever outrageous position and have whatever, so that's my perspective, is that, do they believe this? I don't think so. I think they're media creatures. And this is what they have to do to stay relevant.
And very quickly, Fear Lunch Lady said, I'm not interested in someone who manipulates people with tantrums. If Cenk can't behave in public, he should sit in the hall until he calms down. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but then he's not interested. Then they wouldn't have that footage. I mean, that's...
Yeah, and again, Cenk...
It's show business.
Cenk's tantrums made him, I'm guessing, a multimillionaire, and he has an audience of many, many millions. Yeah, the problem... Ultimately, I mean, Cenk is evil, but he is not the core of the problem. The problem is culturally the fact that somebody like that isn't, somebody like that would exist in a rational society. But as I always say, he'd be shouting at a street corner or under a bridge, and people would, cross the street to not be too close to him. Now he has a massive audience, and we're talking about him on a much, much smaller channel, which, that's a statement on the culture. Let's hear some more statement on the culture.
It's a fair question.
It's a very fair question, and I appreciate it. And I'd like to make a comparison. I'm sure that you follow events, and you're very interested in what happens in Israel and with what our enemies are doing, and I see that. But I'm sure that you know that until this cyber operation that Israel reportedly did, Israel was able to kill more than 500 Hezbollah operatives in Lebanon, throughout Lebanon. Now, I haven't seen you tweet about it or any of the other people who usually support the other side, but if you take a look at how many civilians were killed in Lebanon as a result, as an unfortunate byproduct of Israeli strikes, and if you compare that to the situation in Gaza, I think that what you will find is it's the same IDF, the same operating procedures that we have in Gaza, only that here in Lebanon, until now, the situation is that Hezbollah has so far distinguished itself from civilian population, and they haven't been fighting from within cities. And as such, when the IDF has deployed lethal weapons against them, then terrorists have been killed and not civilians. And it's not because it's a different IDF, it's because, as you said, you used the word excuses, I would call it a reason and the sad reality of Hamas using Gazan population as their human shields, which I think is deplorable. And if you claim to be a defender of Palestinians and Arabs and other people, and you have that in your heart, and I think that your criticism should be pointed first and foremost towards Hamas and all of the other cowards who are using Palestinians as their human shields, who are afraid to fight out in the open, who are firing rockets from schools, and who are using mosques as their launch pads against Israel. That, I think, is despicable, and that should be condemned, not the fact that we are going in there to fight them after they attacked us on October the 7th.
All right, just quickly before she she repeats the question, he answers. I noticed it now looking at it again. Cenk is nodding the whole time. Like, what are you saying no to? Like, what are you saying? And it's the whole time with that disgusting, arrogant smirk on his face. Like, what? They're not hiding behind civilians. They're not using their population. They're not shooting from schools. Like, all of this is not stuff that Hamas would deny. Cenk is denying it in their name, even though they themselves won't deny it. Again, these are Hamas's Western spokespeople.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a body language expert, but I remember seeing it enough on the old O'Reilly show to know that when he's doing this, it's like he's trying to fight back against reason, against reality, and an attempt, in my opinion, steal some focus. He knows this gentleman is right. He knows he's saying facts, and he's morally wrong. So he's doing whatever he can to distract from the argument. He has nothing to say, so he's just going to try to take away focus by, and it gets so funny. Who does that? Like a little kid. Yeah. It's like a little
By the
child.
way, Jonathan, in Cenk's defense, in Bulgaria, this means yes and this means no. He could be communicating in Bulgarian. So maybe he is actually agreeing with the IDF spokesperson.
Well, considering he's Turk, I don't think he's any fan of Bulgarians, and I don't think he would emulate anything they do. But yeah, again, it's, we'll have more to talk about when Candace actually responds. But again, when I heard this like answer, yeah, it was just so clear. And again, Cenk like disagreeing. Again, like that's a question. Like, what is he disagreeing? Like, that is he actually saying that Hamas is like, yeah, not using any like human shields? Like, no one is even dispute. Like, you can still make a comment that, and he will actually make that comment that basically they're like French resistance, so they have to fight in a civilian population. But again, it's such a sort of like it's that it reminds me again of 12 Angry Men. Like, don't concede any point, don't let anything go through, don't let a single point of reality like get into your argumentation, or you might fall into being wrong. So just deny everything, just say everything is a lie, just deny everything he says, and move from then. It's again, it's such a
Yeah, you know what? I appreciate the Israeli representative, I think, moved the argument a bit to moral terms there for a minute. So it wasn't about how many civilians or kids, this or that. He laid it out in really elegant moral terms. And for that, Cenk had no response. But what's great, if you watch this its entirety, he's beginning to perspire. And that, of course, we know is building towards a magnificent Mount St. Helens style eruption of Mount Cenk to come.
But Candace did have a response, which we'll get to in a second. Soupy says, Jonathan, you kind of got it, but I don't think Cenk actually knows what the IDF guy is saying is correct. I don't give Cenk that kind of credit. I absolutely think he is being dishonest, and he knows who he's defending. He knows who the Palestinians are. He knows who Hamas is, and he defends them anyway. All right, let's continue.
I didn't issue a condemnation. I asked you a question, and you just delivered me the same talking points that we always hear. And you didn't actually provide me an answer.
I actually
did.
If you
are
I gave you
able
an
to go
explanation.
into a foreign country, you guys you have control over the Gaza Strip, right? It's a part of Israel.
No, it isn't.
If you are able to go into a country like Lebanon, where you don't have control, where you can't just shut off their water, where you can't be monitoring people's actions in the same way and within the same proximity to Israel, why are you unable to similarly perform a surgical operation to locate where exactly those Hamas soldiers are? And by the way, do you have a number for how many Hamas soldiers have been killed in the Gaza Strip?
Right. So, I mean, you either weren't listening or maybe I wasn't
how
clear.
many Hamas soldiers have been killed?
Yeah, I heard your
Gaza
question,
Strip?
Candace. I heard your question. Maybe you weren't listening or I wasn't clear. I'm usually clear when I speak, but I'll repeat it. Israel has been able to take out more than 500 Hezbollah operatives, and with absolutely minimal collateral damage in Lebanon. Why is that the case, which is different from the situation in Gaza? Because Hezbollah hasn't been hiding amongst civilians yet. Hamas is, and that is why, unfortunately, Palestinian civilians in Gaza have also been killed in significant numbers, and many have been wounded. If I were you, I wouldn't use Hamas information. I wouldn't rely on Hamas statistics and to claim for them to be true.
I'm asking you, I'm not asking Hamas. How many Hamas soldiers have been killed in the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, I'll answer, and it's nice that we're having an interview and Pierce is getting a few minutes off. According to the information that I have, and this is working numbers, I don't think that there are final numbers, and I think it will take a lot of time before a definite number of dead Hamas terrorists is given. But the best assessment that I am aware of is between 16 and 18,000 Hamas operatives that have been killed in combat in Gaza.
All right, this is a good place to pause. Yeah, that disgusting, despicable thing. You finally hear him after it's really shocking. The shocking thing in all of this is Cenk keeping his despicable, disgusting mouth shut for so long. But he eventually can't help himself, and he starts laughing when he hears numbers, that are
he knows it's true. He knows it's true. He smiles. He knows he's
You didn't hear that when Candace said 40,000 women and children, which is again a denial of what Hamas is saying. It's saying that Hamas is hiding. Maybe Hamas is doing Israeli propaganda, by not saying just how many women and children. No, you hear the laughter when basically when the IDF former IDF spokesperson tells you that yes, many of the people who died, which is something we know to be a fact because we see Hamas not being able to do as much of what they did before, that many of them are terrorists. Yeah, what a piece of shit.
Yeah, again, and sort of like Candace's like inability to understand, because again, he went through basically saying, why there is a difference between Lebanon and Gaza, and he pretty much said, in the complete short, he said Lebanon so far hasn't. I'm sorry, Freudian slip. Hezbollah so far hasn't used human shield. That was basically his answer, and she's like, she didn't understand. Like, does she not grasp the ability to like understand what he said? Because again, it's such a simple answer. Like, you don't even have to like accept some sort of propaganda or some sort of like, you need, like, she called it like a Israeli talking point, which again, this attack has started like or happened 2 or 3 days ago. How is it already like an idea for like Israeli talking point? Again, it is what it is always. There's no actual like ability or well, that is ability. There is no want to actually understand the situation.
And Candace doesn't have anything to say. I've always said she's simply a lightweight. She has no ideas. So she's kind of fashioning herself now as some kind of a Barbara Walters. She's going to pin him down with a tough question and because she's actually nothing to add. And I just have to say, I don't evaluate people based on their looks alone, but Candace here, when I look at her, that kind of steely, soulless, perfectly put together image, it reminds me of Whittaker Chambers' review of Atlas Shrugged, which is infamous now. You remember that line? Quote, from almost any page of Atlas Shrugged, a voice can be heard from painful necessity commanding to a gas chamber, go. Now, that has nothing to do with Atlas Shrugged, but when I see Candace's image, I don't know. That's honestly what comes to mind.
I want to.
I just quickly want to say I was wondering. I think I once heard where this sort of like stoic, debate style or sort of like conversation style, that you're supposed to be like this and you're just supposed to present facts. It sort of came from like a Red Pill community. Basically, you shouldn't have emotions. You shouldn't have any sort of feelings towards a certain subject. You're just stoically like standing there. And if you get any emotions, if you feel any emotions towards any sort of subject, and she'll call out Cenk for that reason. He'll be like, Cenk, can you just shut up, basically, and let us normally discuss this? And again, she came out looking better from this. But I think, especially with her sort of having a lot of fun with the Red Pill community or being involved, I think that's where this sort of like thing comes from. Basically, like, you're supposed to be stoic and not have any emotions.
I want to give a quick update. We mentioned in the Daily Objective that Ibrahim Akil, the number 2 in Hezbollah, was eliminated. Apparently, several senior officials in the Radwan force, which he also commanded, were also killed. This was the force that was supposed to do the northern part of what October 7th was meant to be, with an invasion from the north. He was the mastermind of that plan. So yeah, not a good day for Hezbollah. Also, just a quick reminder for Inner Circle members and members who are considering becoming Inner Circle members, that from tomorrow we will live stream the Philosophy Forum for Inner Circle members. That is almost every week we have the Philosophy Forum. That is not recorded. That is something that we do. You can attend live, and you can otherwise you don't know. Much like the great city of Las Vegas, what happens in the Philosophy Forum stays in the Philosophy Forum. So you can also feel free to say things you wouldn't otherwise say if they were recorded and put on the internet forever. All right, Daniel.
Razi, I'll quickly just say Thank you to all of our contributors. I mean, Razi, what you provide and Daniel provide with the Ayn Rand Center UK is unbelievable. It's a wealth of information for people who are interested in learning about Ayn Rand's ideas. All these forums and the Fountainhead reading discussion groups, and especially to the YouTube members, Teneribus Snit, Jesse Reichbach, all of those, El Rito, all those who contribute even £5 or £10 a month to keep all of this original content on the air. We really, really thank you for that. And we want to see more of you supporting us, even if it's a couple bucks a month.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's play the next clip.
Nothing.
Because that's an outrageous, ludicrous number. Even the IDF doesn't make up numbers like that. Once they said 13,000, then they went back to 9,000, and this gentleman right here just made up 16 to 18,000. So Jonathan, do you concede that Israel has dictatorial control over Gaza and the West Bank? That it's a different situation than a sovereign nation that could have military or different barracks or can separate folks? It's like saying in occupied France, well, why was the resistance hiding among the civilian population? So of course we had to kill all the French who were protecting the resistance. So the problem is that another country, Israel, has dictatorial control over Gaza and West Bank. I mean, you've got to acknowledge that, right? I mean, you're not claiming that Gaza's free. You guys just destroyed 85%
I think that the only thing ridiculous...
If I may say that, I think we're focusing too much on the Israel-Hamas war, which we've done a lot on this show, as you know, with you guys, right? I would rather, Cenk, just get your reaction to a specific operation which appears to have been conducted at Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel's instructions, and carried out primarily led by Mossad. From an operational point of view, obviously a stunning success, but is it valid? Is it fair game, as Jonathan said, given the way that Hezbollah has been attacking Israel now for years?
Yeah, so the most important part of this, Piers, is why did Israel act now? Because, look, you could say, oh, Saddam Hussein was a bad guy, so we should have gone into Iraq. No, I don't think so. You could say Hezbollah are terrorists, but then Israel has killed 30 times the civilians that Hamas has, let alone Hezbollah. So is the Israeli government, the IDF, and Netanyahu terrorists?
But you don't dispute that Hezbollah has been targeting Israel for years.
Okay. Yeah, and Israel's been targeting. Israel bombed Beirut, bombed Damascus.
No, forget Israel for a moment.
They bombed Tehran.
But do you accept,
they bomb all their neighbors.
Yeah,
but
do you
hold on.
accept,
why now, Piers?
Specifically,
why now?
do you accept that Hezbollah has persistently targeted Israel with endless rockets? Do you accept that?
Oh, they've launched rockets, no question. And I'm sure you guys concede that Israel has dictatorial control over Gaza and the West Bank.
But don't go back to that. So is it fair game, as Jonathan said, if it was Hezbollah terrorists who were specifically targeted through their pages, is that fair game given the state of the warfare between Hezbollah and Israel?
Look, I can answer that question, but we've got to get to the more important question.
Well, answer that question first.
Hold on, I'll answer it. So did they check that the 2,800 people and the children near them and the other civilians near them, that they were all, quote-unquote, terrorists before they decided to murder all of them? Now, luckily, only 12 died, but 2,800 were injured. No, they didn't check. And by the way, buyer beware of Israeli products. Apparently, they have bombs in them. Okay,
do you suggest we send them a warning?
The real question is why
you
now?
You remind me of when the BBC asked me if we should have warned the Hamas terrorists who were keeping our 4 hostages before we went in to save them. Why didn't we warn them before? Because civilians were killed in the combat. You are just as ridiculous in your pontification and in your acrobatics to try to smear Israel. You're really unable to say black is black and white is white. And look how low Piers has to go in order to get you
Jonathan,
to say something against
So
Hezbollah.
He is struggling because there's a question that he doesn't want to answer because it's very difficult, but he does, and this is again where you see Candace seems to be better, surprisingly better at not saying the things that she'd rather say to her own audience on this show than Cenk is. Cenk can't stop himself from saying that it was wrong for Israel to specifically target commanders in the organization that has been firing rockets on Israeli civilians every single day for a year. And he's not talking, he's not even mentioning that. Like, yeah, at some point he says, oh yeah, I've condemned Hamas and Hezbollah, but 30,000 more people have died, or whatever the number is. It's really shocking. And then he takes this 12 people only, luckily only 12 people died, but 2,800 were injured. Well, those are terrorists. There's terrorists who died. There are some reports that maybe 1 or 2 civilians died, which again, if they're actually innocent civilians, that is horrible. But how is that not the fault of Hezbollah? And how is the most targeted operation in the history of the world against combatants wherever they are, not in a military base? How do you ever say that is wrong unless what you are against is the existence of the country that did that in order to defend its citizens?
Cenk knows that he can't say Israel was right, because if he says that, then Piers is thinking, why do I have Cenk here? I need someone who's real. Cenk is playing the part he needs to play. But his technique here reminds me of something that Dr. Peikoff, this is my own application, but Dr. Peikoff always talked about rationalism, and his understanding objectivist essay, he talks about rationalism as separation of ideas from reality. So Cenk is all about just having these words out there. He wants to get the Israeli guy to bite on dictatorial control, because we all know dictatorial control is bad. So if he can get, now Piers isn't having of that. So he moves on to this idea that killing is killing, and that retaliation for unprovoked attacks is hey, look, Israel kills people, America kills people, or excuse me, Israel kills people, Hezbollah kills people. So he sees no distinction of that. So for him, these are just words. Murder is bad, killing is bad. Israel does it. So there's no context. It's just such it's so detached from reality that you almost shake your head saying, what is this guy talking about?
Yeah, I'm really wondering if Cenk is some sort of new evolution of human, because I think he actually lacks peripheral vision, because he always looks like this at any topic he gets. And well, first, what did I say at the start? How do you destroy what Israel is doing? How do you destroy the good? How do you destroy, the right course of action? You compare them to evil. So yes, Israel did that. Yeah, but Hezbollah did that and Hamas did that. But Israel killed 30 more innocent civilians. Again, looking like this at the issue, completely ignoring why are those deaths there? Why did it happen?
Long term, people who are watching, when they see Cenk's, you see him starting to perspire a little bit more in his anger. So we know we're building towards something. We're going to build towards a climax, I guess you could say. Cenk's climax. Stay tuned.
Yeah, and again, then
just so our audience doesn't leave, we don't see any Cenk climax at any point. Daniel, continue.
And again, then listing of the bombings, and again, looking like this at them: the Beirut bombing, the bombing in Syria, the bombing in Iran. Right. I wonder why they happened. I wonder what was the result of those attacks. What was the result? I wonder what has happened there. Again, completely dropping off the context, and just finding any reason he can to basically blame Israel for it. Because again, this issue shows you can't deny what Israel did. You can't deny how precise this was. So you either have to focus on the minuscule sort of perceived bad things that happened, the fact that reportedly 2 civilians have died, which again is the fault of Hezbollah. Hezbollah can not be a terrorist organization, cannot attack Israel actively. But again, he always flips it on Israel. Even, we might not get to it, but basically later he asks, basically, why is Hezbollah attacking? And he says, well, Israel shouldn't be in Gaza. Hezbollah just said that they are just protecting people of Gaza.
Was that in the second timestamp? Because I thought we might skip to that one, the 107, right? This is, I think.
Do you want to skip already, or?
Is there anything more in this part? My memory of Cenk is kind of, I have a selective memory when it comes to.
Well, we have to leave time for Cenk's climax. I'm sorry, the audience has been waiting for that the whole show.
Yeah, so I have the timestamp. I was slowly going through, and you could actually see Cenk getting More and more. By the way, one thing someone in the chat mentioned is look at Cenk blinking, because he blinks like 30 times in 2 seconds. But all right, do we go to the last clip?
Right after I read PC's super chat, thank you, PC. PC says one has to be pretty bad to make her look good. Yes, and I have to clarify. I was actually not 100% sure I wanted to go with this title because it suggests that she somehow looks reasonable. I mean, it says it in the title next to Cenk, but the problem with titles is you have to fit it into a small space. Yeah, she does not look reasonable. It's just that Cenk is more Candace than Candace in some ways.
And
All
she's
right.
playing the whole, oh, I'm just asking questions thing, so it's like a way to fill up time when you want to stay relevant and have actually nothing original to say, in my opinion.
All right, let's jump to the last clip.
Enormous repercussions for the whole region. What is your thought about that prospect?
Yeah, so first of all, there's a correct path here. Take the ceasefire, stop the occupation, 2 states, and let both Israel and the Palestinians live in peace and freedom.
None of this is related to Hezbollah. Sorry to interrupt, but none of this is related to Hezbollah.
It's 100% related to Hezbollah.
No, it isn't. Hezbollah, this Iranian proxy has nothing to do with Palestinians. Hezbollah has nothing to do with Palestinians. They are Lebanese. They are Shiite Lebanese. They have nothing to do with Palestinians. They have nothing to do with Palestinians. There's not a single Palestinian in Hezbollah. So for you to tie it to Hamas is ridiculous.
No, you're
it is whitewashing.
Ridiculous.
It's the old tired propaganda against Israel. You have to be honest and address the situation. Hezbollah has nothing to do with Palestinians.
Hezbollah is doing it because of the occupation. Are you so stupid you don't understand that?
None of Hezbollah's business. Nothing to do with Hezbollah.
Oh, yeah, all the Muslims. Watch us.
Who appointed Hezbollah other than their Iranian masters to have anything to say about Palestinians?
Quickly, so yeah, when Cenk was asked about the pager operation and took several times being asked that before he could answer, he finally said, well, some innocents were hurt. Now he is explaining, and by explaining I mean legitimizing basically why Hezbollah does what they do, which is because of the occupation. So everything Hezbollah is doing, which is they're only doing one thing, which is firing whatever they can, rockets and missiles and drones at Israeli civilians. Again, any civilians who died in Lebanon died because they were right next to a terrorist. Any Israeli civilian that dies, it's because they're the target, and this is because the occupation. So Cenk is pro-killing civilians. He is absolutely in favor of killing civilians, and he expresses that view repeatedly. He is just against killing supposedly civilians, but anybody who is certainly not Israeli, but certainly targeting and actively working to kill Israelis.
Yeah, and again, that's sort of Hezbollah wouldn't just randomly start bombing. I mean, again, whenever someone brings that up, I wonder if they look at domestic violence the same. Well, he wouldn't just randomly beat her up. Something must have happened beforehand. Like, it's so disgusting. Like, again, the sort of like they wouldn't just like this is like neo-Nazi talking points when they say like, well, Jews wouldn't be just randomly kicked out of more than 100 countries. There is the number 109 or 108 or whatever that the neo-Nazis use against the Jews. Something must have happened because of it. This sort of like trying to justify or making some sort of justification for what Hezbollah is doing. Again, it's so disgusting. Jonathan?
I was responding. We have such a great active super chat going with El Rito, Davey Boy, Jesse Ryback, so many supporters from all over the country. And, they say ARCUK, but Razi, you have a global and international audience of people interested in Ayn Rand's ideas, applying them to modern day philosophy and realizing that, you've created the biggest network in objectivist history. So we're happy to have all of them along who are part of our journey as students of objectivism.
Yeah, and of course we do appreciate everybody's support. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says my son has a new joke. Beep beep. Yes, well, make sure he doesn't make that joke around people who might be afraid that the Jews are coming after them wherever they are. That's apparently a thing, according to some. And I just want to say that for members at our absolute highest level, which is Midas Mulligan, which is expensive, but it is worth it. On Monday, there will be a workshop on investing with Jonathan Hoenig. For those who don't know, Jonathan is not just a commentator here on ARCUK who comments on Candace Owens and Cenk Uygur and what's the poker guy name? I forgot it.
Darian.
Yeah, Dan Bilzerian and all these people who, by the way, Jonathan finds out about in preparation for shows.
Thanks to your programming.
But he is also, he runs his own hedge fund. He's been a financial commentator on Fox News and Fox Business for decades. That is where I first saw Jonathan, before I knew of his interest in Rand's ideas, before I knew he's an objectivist. That was well before, maybe 15 years or more before I actually met him in person. So yeah, he has a workshop. If you are not a Midas Mulligan member and are able to become a Midas Mulligan member, you can always cancel. You shouldn't, but you can cancel after 1 month, but it is a great time to do it. You will also get a copy of that book you see behind you, Price is Primary. So yeah, that is Monday, right after the reality show. Should we go back to Cenk?
I just quickly want to mention one thing, because so when this pager attack happened, that day, I think after TDO, I was messaging with my friend. We were talking about it, and he was asking me, like, how could anybody have a problem with this attack? And I said to him, well, because Israel didn't have a live feed on every single pager, they knew it was going to explode. And I was joking, but what did you hear from Cenk just a few minutes ago? Israel didn't have basically didn't see every single pager that was going to explode. They didn't have basically a live feed on it. So, they couldn't have, it's a terrorist attack. Again, that sort of impossible standard pretty much says that it results in the fact that, yeah, Israel just cannot defend itself anyway. Should we go?
Let's roll.
Yeah.
What have Lebanese
So you don't want
militias
peace.
got to do with it?
You don't want peace. I know.
Of
You want
course
to
we do.
occupy
But
and
what do
steal their land as
what
long
does
as
Hezbollah
humanly
have to do
possible.
with
I
it?
got it.
Hezbollah doesn't have a
Okay,
say.
so-
It's not their business. It's Israel and Palestinians. If you were to say, take a ceasefire with Hamas, I would say that's a valid topic to discuss. What does Hezbollah have to do with Palestinians? Absolutely nothing. The only thing that they have in common is that they are
You think
funded by
Hezbollah is
Iran.
attacking
Okay,
Israel
let's
out of
respond.
thin blue air? Do you actually genuinely believe that Hezbollah is attacking Israel for no reason at all, just because they don't like Jews? No, they're attacking you because of the occupation.
Yes. All right. Are you kidding me? Dude, yes. And this is the amazing thing. Cenk is not, again, back to Supicast's comment before. Cenk is fully aware of what generally Arab culture is and Muslim culture is and its approach to Jews. Yes, there is a wide consensus about killing all the Jews. But in this case, this is an organization this is not people who sit at home or go about their daily lives and just say, oh, you know, it would be nice if all the Jews were dead. This is an organization that only exists for the purpose of bringing that goal about. Do you believe that the Nazis just sat around and decided, yes, they wanted to kill all the Jews? I mean, it's not a difficult thing. And it's not this is another thing that we keep saying. We keep saying it with the Palestinians. Don't listen to the Western advocates of the Palestinians. Don't listen to the Western defenders of Hezbollah like Cenk Uygur. Listen to them in their own words. Listen to the Palestinians. Listen to Hezbollah. They are not ambiguous about this. They say that all they want is to kill all the Jews. And you have these useful idiot scumbags like Cenk Uygur in the West who are lying about what the people they're defending are actually about.
You know, I have to say, Cenk's reasoning there reminded me very much of Candace, who you remember, like 6 months ago now, Candace had that whole diatribe where she was saying, did the Jews, something effective like, did the Nazis really experiment on Jews? It would seem so. Why would they, remove someone's organs just to put them back in? And she was kind of casting doubt on the well-documented history of these terrible so-called experiments on captured Jews by the Germans. And Cenk seems to be doing that, like applying logic to saying, why would they just want to kill Jews? Like totally ambivalent or, ignorant to the fact that that's exactly what they do by their own words.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same question, like, why are people racist? It's so dumb to be. Yeah, people can be irrational. People have free will, and people will pursue irrational goals without proper philosophy. Again, it's such a, like, I wonder if it's just, we live in the West, so it's like we cannot even comprehend, someone being evil. And, to some extent, it's understanding, it's showing, how advanced the Western world is, that you are at the point that you cannot even, like, imagine someone being so irrational that they would just want to kill Jews for, that would basically be an end in itself. Like, that's what we want to do. Because, again, Hezbollah has been basically, has been creating around the same time as the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and has been modeled after it. It has, and the only reason it has been formed is resistance to Israel, which basically means they want to get the Israelis out. They want to destroy the nation of Israel, which, they don't just want to rename it. They don't just want to, take over Israel, rename it to Palestine, and then give everybody and establish a westernized world. No, they want to establish whatever sort of government they are currently pursuing in the region they control. They want that expanded everywhere.
Right. Before we go to the next clip, I usually limit troll comments that I read to, if they're funny or if they're about content rather than about our looks. But one of the trolls says, Razi looks like he got the low-flow shower head from Seinfeld. That is actually the case. I'm pretty sure, yeah, these are the last few days of this hair, people. Enjoy it while you can. All right, let's go to the next clip.
So incredibly ignorant that you don't understand that simple concept?
The only ignorant person here is you, my esteemed colleague to the panel, to be parroting Iranian talking points and
blah, 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 blah. I know. Everything is terrorist. Anyone who's opposed to Israel is terrorist. Israel can murder anyone they like, but they're not terrorists. I know.
What has Hezbollah got to do with Palestinians? Nothing, except that they have the same benefactor, Iran, that is providing them weapons. Nothing else. No logical connection, no religious connection, no territorial connection, nothing. Only empty talking points from people like you and from Iranian parrots. That's it.
Yeah. I know. Poor victim Israel. Oh, they just have been humiliated and oppressed and occupied for 57 long years. 5.5 million Muslims, and they're outraged to find out that other Muslims might not love that idea. So this, look, guys, Piers, this is the most important part of this. Right now, the reason I brought up the ceasefire is you could take the ceasefire, and I guarantee you that Hezbollah stops the rocket attacks.
All right. Look, maybe his guarantee, maybe his people told him, so maybe he can guarantee that. But yeah, what a piece of shit. The Muslim world has attacked. Certainly, the Arab countries around Israel have attacked Israel consistently since before it was formed, since the war was declared the day after Israel declared independence, and ever since. So yes, Israel is the victim in this situation, but they're not crying. They're not doing the Palestinian thing of, oh, look, my building is gone, without context of why that is. They're actually fighting back, and that's admirable. And it's admirable. Again, we criticize Israel all the time because they're not fighting back enough. But it is admirable that Israel is fighting not just in the face of absolute savages that surround the country and want nothing other than to kill all the Jews, but also from attacks and attacks diplomatically, if you will, from the rest of the world, including its so-called allies, attacks and claims that Israel shouldn't act in order to defend itself. So yeah, Israel, is doing what victims should do generally, which is standing up for itself and fighting back. And again, not as much as we'd like to see, but certainly more than Cenk would like to see. All right, we have 2 minutes because we have a hard stop because there is a Briefly Objective premiering on our sister channel, the Briefly Objective, which you can find in the chat. So very quickly, Jonathan, closing remarks, and where can people find more from you?
We're not going to see Cenk's blow up. I would like to say I feel robbed, other than our super chat audience has made me feel very whole. My new book is Price is Primary. If you become a member, you will see a private presentation on Monday that tells all about it. So I hope you'll do that, and check me out at capitalispig.com as well.
Yes, let me just clarify, a Midas Mulligan member. You will get a lot of stuff if you become a member at any other level, but that is at the absolute highest level. Daniel.
It's a bargain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just quickly trying to make a point. Basically, Cenk was talking about how, Palestinians have been living under occupation for a long time. And I'm always, my question is the only problem is that the person ruling is of a different skin color or of a different culture? Arab population live under authoritarian dictatorial regimes under every single Arab state there is, basically. Israel is the only state where Arabs are actually free, when they actually do have rights. And again, I don't understand this sort of like, as long as the dictator who rules us and who we either elect or support is of our skin color, it somehow makes it okay. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, then it should be in the description.
And I see that we have a few seconds, so let me just say, when I mentioned my hair, there were comments. Soupycast said, someone send $500 to save Razi's hair. There are a lot of things. We'll do great things with that money if somebody sends a $500 super chat, but my hair is off limits. This has to go. That's one of the few things I agree with our troll in the chat on. Actually, it's the only thing. Yeah, Jonathan.
Quick final words. Watch Dr. Peikoff's 1984 debate with John Ridpath about proper debate. I mean, Cenk devolves into just head shaking, gaslighting, and ultimately just saying blah, 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 and in effect, an attempt to obfuscate facts and reality from the Israeli spokesman. So,
and just quickly join Monday so you can also get this book.
Yeah, and Briefly Objective, starting now on the Briefly Objective link. Daniel?
Link is gonna be in the chat.
It'll be in the chat. All right, see you tomorrow.